Well, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jess. I'm so happy to be here.
This is so fun. This is something that we should have done so long ago, I feel, but I'm so glad that we didn't because we both are here now with new perspective, new experiences, and new lessons. And we get to sit down now and basically just have a candid conversation where we were saying yesterday in the DMs when we were talking, let's turn this fun podcast episode into sessions, like a session at the gym when we're in between sets and we're just like having girl talk. And we happen to be talking about business life and strategy and mindset and stuff. So I'm stoked to be here. And I don't want this to be like full blown interview. I want this to be conversational. So
Totally. I'm down for that. I have my Snuggie on. You guys can't see it, but my cozy's like vibing here. It's coffee chats.
I love it. Coffee chats, but at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't currently have a coffee because being almost 40, it's starting to affect me now. Coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So unless it's a decaf, but what are you going to do? Well, we have to give a little bit of background just for my audience over here. I don't even know how we first met. New York City Fitness?
Actually, it was definitely New York City Fitness. You were doing the New York City fitness scene, but had started Empower. You'd had a couple rounds, and I was baby coach fitness instructor in New York City. So I was, following, there was a big gym in New York City at the time called Performix, and Jess was one of the trainers there. And I was following all of you guys on Instagram and thought you were the bee's knees. And I was just getting my certifications like Strong First and, all the ones that everybody gets. And I actually remember this very vividly. You were hosting, I literally remember the date. You were hosting a live event.
Empoweredpreneur?
And it was Empoweredpreneur. And it was the weekend. I remember it was the weekend before my Strong First certification. That's why I remember it so much, because I was like cutting weight to take that dang certification. So I was like lightheaded while I went to this event, and so silly. But that was when I was introduced to you. Had no idea what the online space was. And really the whole event kind of in a way went over my head of like what everyone was talking about and, posting online and starting a business. But I remember going there, being introduced to you, and of course was following you on Instagram, and then it evolved. And then Jess was my first business coach in 2020 with Empower. So
yeah. Was that 2018 or 2019? Empoweredpreneur? I think that was 2018. I don't even know. I hosted so many events. I should know that.
2019. That was 2019.
Yeah. That was a fun one. We had a whole panel up there. We had speakers.
Yep.
Oh man. I remember our keynote speaker. I won't say her name because I don't want to embarrass her. She was so nervous to speak, and she's arguably like one of the best speakers. And she speaks on massive stages for like Google and L'Oreal. And she was so nervous to speak. And I like forced her, like, no, you're going to do it.
Yeah. That was cool. That was great. It's fun to play Where Are They Now with everyone in that room.
Yeah, I know. It's wild. Those days in New York were so fun. So fun. Just running around, bopping around, going to classes. So you came over and you were the ultimate fitness coach, like all of our clients were, and you have it. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I'm going to make you like totally uncomfortable. You have it. There are just certain people, and now you're a coach, there are people that come into your world and you're like, that person just has it. Call it the it factor, call it that like something special. It was just, you came into my world. You were inside of Empower, our signature program, and you were in a class of, I think, like 55 or 60 people. So a lot of people. And from the moment that you started with us, you stood out. To me, you stood out to our support coaches. You stood out to all of our niche coaches and our experts that we had in there. And it was something that we would talk about, not talking about you behind your back, but we would talk about Alex Najarian. You have it. And there's something about you and your energy that is magnetic. And the really cool thing that I've been able to witness over the last 3 years is how you've been able to take that sort of your secret sauce, which we always talk about, like you are the secret sauce. You've taken that ability to be magnetic and to be a light in the room, and you've turned it into a wildly successful online business. And the thing that I love most about you is how you've turned it into a process, and you've turned it into a framework and a strategy and a system so that you actually teach that to other people. And so it's not just like get in the frequency, and it's not just high vibe. It's literally like, here are the 5 steps you're going to take, because y'all know I love strategy and breaking it down. How have you been able to sort of take what you did, which to some is, oh, she's lucky, accidental success, she just has it, which you do. How have you been able to systematize that and turn that into something tangible that you could teach other people?
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you covered so much there. And also thank you for saying all that, because I'm flattered to hear you say that. And I think that in terms of the strategy, I can really break it down and look at, okay, what have I done to get this thing off the ground? And when things do work, I always study what that is. Why did that work? I call myself a detective, like in business, and I encourage other people to be a detective too. Like I never go about it as a mentee, like teach me the answers. You're going to tell me the answer, and I don't have a brain for myself, and I'm always going to come back to you. It's like, okay, yes, you're going to give me a blueprint and a framework, but I'm studying it and my implementation of it. And when it works, I note it and I try to repeat it. And when something doesn't work, I'm always curious as to why. Right. And when I fail, I actually get excited about it when I quote fail, because I'm one step closer and being able to look at the data and understand why didn't that work, so I can tweak it and make it work. So I think in terms of turning things into a formula for my clients, I test things on myself all the time, right? I'm constantly like learning, investing in courses and testing it on myself. And then when it works in a repeatable way for myself, that's when I start teaching it to my clients. And then when I find it with my one-on-one clients, my mastermind clients working for them, that's when I'm like, okay, I can teach this to the masses and put it in more of like a group course, a masterclass, et cetera, as a repeatable system in terms of strategy. Now, the thing that you're calling the it factor, 1,000%, and I will like die on a hill saying this, it is a self-love piece. Every coach that you see, like when you look at them and you go, they just have it, like they just have it, I can't look away. It's not a rinse and repeat thing to teach, because everyone's it is different. It's just self-love. So it's not like, oh, this is what you have to do to have it. You have to wear this hat, or you have to have this font in your branding, or you have to have this color, or your titles of your courses have to be this. It's not rinse and repeatable that way. I think the it factor is you have to get so sure of who you are, which is that practice is the way that you're leading yourself when the cameras are off, right? Like that practice is who are you when no one's watching? And when you follow through for yourself, I'm like getting emotional. When you follow through for yourself over and over, when the cameras are off and you're like, I am worthy, regardless of outside circumstance, when the cameras are off, then when the cameras are on and you are so embodied in, I love myself, come with me, you can love yourself too. I think that's what's magnetic. And I think at the core of any coaching that we're teaching on the internet, whether it's, business coach, relationship coach, fitness coach, health coach, mindset coach, whatever, people want to feel happy, loved, higher quality of life. So the coaches who are teaching whatever the strategy is for health, for relationships, for business, the way that it lands is when the person who's delivering it is using those skill sets to be in love with their life, in love with themselves, genuinely happy from the inside out, because at its core of these modalities or these transformations that we're selling, that's what people want on the other side. And I think that that's what turns heads or is quote magnetic,
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
I would agree. There's so many layers here though, because I'm like, there also is just on the more tactical side, right? There are things that are hard to teach, and there are skills that take people longer to get good at or get comfortable with. And one of those things would be just even speaking, right? Public speaking. Sure. There are people that are terrified of public speaking, and until they get over that, or they practice it, or they get enough reps in, like they're just not great at it. And they could love themselves, but they could still be super uncomfortable behind the camera. So when you're looking at like, when I see this it factor, I agree with you on the self-love, but when I see this it factor, it's also like, yes. And you, amongst a handful of clients over the years, like many handfuls, you are very good at things that are hard to teach. You're good at holding somebody's attention. You are natural on camera. Even if you were scared, you didn't come off scared. You could think on the fly. You were super adaptable. There are things that I think, like, I love when I get a client that comes in. We were just talking about this morning. So, over at DBE, we host monthly workshops that are totally for free for all of our alumni. And I don't know if you were still on at this moment or if you had popped off yet, but we were talking about the hiring process. And I was saying how it's really more important to hire someone for their character traits and their qualities and their core values and all of like their human character traits rather than their skills, because skills could be taught. So when I'm saying like you have it, in addition to being magnetic, because you have the energy of that like self-love that you're talking about, there are just also elements of it where it was like, okay, check. You're not scared to show up for yourself. Even if you are, you're not letting it hold you back. You're super coachable. You know, you are intuitive. You're curious. You're asking questions, ask better questions, get better answers. So you're someone coming in, not saying, how many times am I supposed to post? But you're going, why did you post 4 times? Like, what's the reason behind that? So when I say the it factor, there's also just like layers and layers and layers of, I don't know, call it confidence, but you can also, people can like sneak confidence and they can pretend. And that's where it's blurry too, of the fake it till you make it. And when it goes back to what you're saying with self-love, we've all felt it, right? You watch someone and you're like, oh, this feels so inauthentic. Like, it's just like, it's a little cringy. But I'm curious, and I don't want to just interview you. I have struggled my whole life with self-love. I struggled with an eating disorder for a decade. I struggled with body dysmorphia my whole life, being in the fitness industry, being a fitness model, magazines, photo shoots, all that stuff did not help. I'm curious if you ever experienced any of that when it came to either body or just like comparing yourself to other people. Or I know we're going to talk about it today because we're both excited to talk about it. But this idea that you brought up of, to me, it sounded like self-trust, where you're sort of trusting yourself to lead yourself. When I've worked with mentors, when I've joined courses and programs, and I know with thousands of my own clients, it's like they're looking for you to give them the answer, and they're looking outside of themselves. They're looking for direction. They're looking for permission. So there's a lot of questions in one, but like I have definitely struggled being in this industry with not sure who I am, not sure if I love myself today. You know,
I mean, God, it's interesting because I feel like something I've always had is this like I'm so open to being humble and like asking other people for, you know, their perspectives. Like, you know, I love a quote from Alex Najarian that's like, if someone's making more money than you, they know more about business than you. And I love that quote because I'm like, period, right? Like I am so open to hear other people's perspectives, but it's like this piece of, you have to be certain in you. Like, it's not tell me the answer and I'm going to copy it. Like questions that are like, how many times should I post? I love that you brought that up because I'm like, what a silly question, right? Like, what is the intention of why you're doing it to build what you want to be building? So I'm actually curious for you, like in your own process, how have you used mentorship? Because I know for you, like, you know, I'm going back to 2020. And at the time when I came in, you were running what felt like for me as your student at the time, this like massive business. I mean, 2020 was a freaking explosion of people that you were holding. And I mean, my class had like 50 something people in it. And then the coaching industry was going all sorts of different ways in 2021. Like when you were using your own mentorship, how were you finding your own answers in who you wanted to be and like what impact you wanted to make and the direction of like Jess Glazer, Jessica DeRose, DBE, like how is it finding yourself in all of that? And what did it look like to find your answers in your own mentorship and for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I still am today. So there's no, I haven't gotten anywhere. There's no destination. The destination is in the doing. And that's what I've learned over the years. And it's like, I'm not trying to get to a finish line because the finish line is the end. And I'm not ready for the end of my life. You know what I mean? So it's like the destination really is in the doing. And so I'm learning still how to get my voice and figure it out and what is working and what is not. And the interesting thing is, as we grow and evolve, which is why we literally named the company Digital Business Evolution, we're always evolving and growing. Your thoughts change, your perspectives change. There are things that I used to believe to be true a couple of years ago that I don't believe to be true anymore, you know, and there are perspectives that I have even, without going into it, like political beliefs have changed from when I was a little kid to when I'm an adult, right? Or what I thought I was supposed to believe about this thing in science to what I believe today, or certain things in the fitness industry that I'm like, oh, I can't believe I used to think that was the best, only right way. Now I would never do it that way. Or we've now learned that it's actually really bad for you. It's like everyone in my parents' generation smoked cigarettes, and now we know that they're bad. And it's okay if you smoke one. Like, I don't think you should, but I'm not saying that you're a bad person. It's just like, they're not healthy for us. We now know that. Years ago, we didn't, right? When I was I'm a kid of the 80s growing up, it was like everything had to be low fat. Everything was low fat because they thought fat was so bad for us. But it's like, no, our brain needs fat. It just maybe is a different type of fat. So I love this idea of being able to evolve. And I don't think that there should be, you shouldn't be like shamed if you change your mind. I think we should all give ourselves permission to change our mind and the way that we think. And that in itself is growth and evolution. So how have I used mentors? Man, I hired my first coach in 2012. That was 11 years ago. I've been in the industry. I'm like a grandma in the industry. I've been selling online courses and programs since 2012. So I hired my first coach over a decade ago. And every single time I've used mentorship as an expansion. How can I think differently?
Yes.
How can I think outside the box?
Yes.
I've hired mentors whom I felt I was very like, and I've hired who I felt I'm very different than. I've hired people that I'm like, oh, this feels like someone I may be friends with. I agree with everything he or she is doing. I want to learn from them. And then I've hired people on the exact opposite spectrum because I'm like, no, I want to see another way. My biggest thing is that I really do believe success leaves clues. Like you said with the Alex Najarian quote, it's like, if someone's doing something that you want to do, you can either spend years trying to figure it out by yourself, or you could read a book and learn it in 200 pages. Right. And they learn these lessons over a lifetime. They put them in 200 pages. That's a gift. Like, take it in. So I've used mentorship in a lot of different ways. What I haven't done is ever expected my results to be the responsibility of my mentor. And I probably learned that 20 something years ago when I checked myself into outpatient therapy. Like, that's where I really learned that my result, my outcome, my healing, my eating disorder had nothing to do with my therapist or my doctor or my nutritionist or whomever. It was like, I had to be responsible for my result or lack thereof. So I have never, and I'm very proud to say that I've never hired a mentor or joined a mastermind looking for an out, a gimmick, or a solution. It's more been like curiosity, like you said. So you say detective, I say scientist. So I'm like a scientist in my business. And it's like, okay, cool. If I mix these two things together, is it going to make an explosion? Oh, it didn't. Interesting. All right, let me write that down. Not a big deal. Like, they don't make an explosion. Maybe something else does. And so I've hired lots of different mentors and joined lots of different programs to see what else is possible, to also grow a network, right? Like, when you're a kid, your parents maybe, or your caretaker, put you into activities with like-minded kids. You want to try soccer. You love running around and flipping. They put you in gymnastics or dance or arts and crafts because they want to connect you to like-minded kids. But then you become an adult and nobody's your advocate anymore. And so, like, nobody's paying for me to go to gymnastics class at 39 years old. So my equivalent to that now is like, my dear closest best friends from high school and college, none of them are entrepreneurs. None of them are in the coaching space. None of them use social media for marketing. So how am I going to get into a room of other people who want to do those things and who want to geek out about social media and landing pages? It's like, I'm going to have to join a mastermind. I'm going to have to go to an event and be my own advocate. So I'd say that's the other thing too. For me, I've been with all of my mentors for multiple years, but I have changed mentors certainly when I'm ready to kind of like learn something new or get into a new, new network. Yeah. What about yourself?
Well, I feel like the way that I've always thought about mentorship, and I got a little bit lost here in 2021. So like, I'll speak to that. I think there was so much in 2021, like language around, pay me for the code, pay me for the secret, pay me for the answer. That I think in 2021, actually after Empower, I didn't feel this way in Empower at all, but afterwards I was like, oh, maybe there is some like secret code that I'm supposed to pay someone to like get me, and it is outside of me. So I did wobble a little bit with that in 2021. But after a few experiences of realizing like, wait, I'm the business owner, like I'm the builder of this, I realized, oh yeah, mentorship isn't, I'm paying you to tell me exactly what I should do at every moment in my business and how I should do it. It's like, I make this comparison, detective and the artist, right? Like, I am the artist and I will get in these rooms to be like, look at this technique, look at this, watercolors over here or painting on canvas over here. And then I'll take those different colors, those different techniques and be like, how does Alex Najarian want to apply this, right? How do I want to apply this to what I'm building? And I think that's what I want, like, online coaches and entrepreneurs to really look at now, like it's not this copy paste of other people's strategy, of other people's business models. Like, yes, you're going to go through a framework, but you are an entrepreneur. Like, we have forgotten the meaning of that word. You are a creator. You are an inventor. So I think it is about a problem solver. Yeah. So I really want more people, because I think people have gotten lazy with this, to be the scientist, be the detective, be the artist, whatever you want to call it, where you are getting in the room. Of course, you are looking at people's strategies. You're taking a peek underneath the hood of the car and kind of seeing how the engine is run. But then you're taking all of the car parts and you're building something that's, you know, yours. And I think that is what really excites me. And that is how I love to use mentorship, is to get in these rooms that expand me, remind me who I am, elevate me to my power, give me new insights, give me new perspectives. But then I take it back to the drawing board and be the creator. And that's what I want more, even beginning stage entrepreneurs to get. Like, even if you're brand new to this space, to not come in asking silly questions, to come in asking, what's the intention of the thing? Like, not how many times should I post, what font should I use, but what's the intention of posting a reel versus posting a Canva graphic? Okay, yes, let's talk about that. Like, selling this way versus selling that way, ads versus no ads. Come back to the intention, not what should I do and how should I do it? Do you agree with that?
100%. It's like, it's the science and the psychology. It's no different than as a trainer or a nutritionist, right? We like give a program or a plan to a client, and like us telling you what to eat isn't actually going to get you the result. And it still might not even get you the result when you do it, because your body might react a certain way. So it's like, what's the science behind this method? Why keto? Why intermittent fasting? What's the perk of paleo or vegan or whatever? And so it goes back to, how does it work? What's the intention behind it? And then, Picasso said, learn the rules to break them, right? So it's like, why, let me see if I even like this. Let me try it on for size. But the thing that, again, I want to credit you for, which is why you're here, number one, on this podcast, but here is in where your business is today, with the mindset, the emotional intelligence, the success, the financial, all of it, is because of the second part. And the second part that you said was, I'm going to go in, I'm going to learn the tools, I'm going to learn the strategies, I'm going to play with them, I'm going to ask questions, I'm going to make them mine, I'm going to, whatever. And then I'm going to implement them. And that's the part that most people are missing, because it's like, we can all download a free PDF. Every single one of us could register for a webinar. We could even show up and watch the whole webinar. But if you don't actually go back and implement it and try and test without attachment to the outcome, you have to be able to try and test and play with detachment to what it looks like, and not making it mean anything about you. But you're just trying, and you're taking that feedback. That's the piece that for you, or for me as someone who's been your mentor more than once, it's like, that is why you're where you are today. And maybe some of your classmates, for many different reasons, are not where your business is. Maybe they don't want to, maybe they're pivoted, they're doing something different or whatever. But the way that you were 3 years later have staying power is because you continue to show up and test and test and test. But I'm really curious. You made mention to in 2021, which it's interesting because I've been in 11 years and there's only been one time ever in those 11 years that I really struggled. And it was in 2021. And most of my friends who've been in the business as long as I have, we all sort of struggled in 2021. So to hear that you, as like brand new to the space, you're a year into business, you go 6 figures in 1 year. And the second year in, which happens to be 2021, you two kind of were in like, I don't know if I could call it a dark space for you. For me, it was. I'm curious, what did that actually look like? You said you got lost. You felt a little lost. Like, what was feeling lost?
I think feeling lost was that I wasn't approaching my business decisions and investments from an empowered place. It was a little bit from this disempowered place of, you have the answers, I don't, I'm a newbie, you get it, and I'm going to pay you my dollars to be better than I am. And where I am right now is not isn't capable. Whereas now it's like no mentor, like I'm growing this business to a million and beyond, right? Like I wouldn't have to pay anyone and I could figure it the heck out. And I think that was my wobble within my own leadership, like self-leadership. And that was what that looked like for 2021. What about for you?
Mine was much different. So being in the industry for a long time after 2020, much like the whole world had changed, the coaching industry changed drastically. And there was an influx of a lot of new coaches. There was an influx of a lot of new marketing. There was an influx of, unfortunately, and this still exists and it does in any industry, a lot of manipulation, which we were coming off of. I say it all the time. 2020 for me felt like we all had been living in a snow globe together for many, many years. And all of the snow at the bottom of the snow globe had just been sitting at the bottom of the snow globe. And 2020 was like somebody took the snow globe and shook the hell out of it, turned it upside down, left it upside down while still shaking it, flipped it back over again. And as the snow started to settle, most of us started to question, what are we doing? Do we even like our jobs? Do we like our spouse? Oh my God, do I even like where I live? What is life? I just got fired. I thought it was a stable thing, right? Like everything was rattled. And in the moments after it settling, which was really 2021, 2022, a lot of things came to light. And for me, 2021 was what would the word be? I didn't want it. So whatever that word would be, like, I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it, but it required a lot of shedding. And that was really painful. So I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't want it, even so much as leaving New York City. Like we were obsessed with New York. We love New York City. We lived there for years. We had a choice. We didn't have to leave, but with how we had to live there during everything being shut down, it wasn't really desirable. It's not what we wanted to do. And we had the opportunity to leave. And so we took that opportunity, but we felt like our time there was cut short. Like that chapter for us still, it's unfulfilled. It was not finished. We were not ready to leave the city.
The New York City chapter?
Yeah.
Doesn't feel fulfilled?
No, we're not done. We're not done. I wouldn't go back now with where we're at. We're in a different season. But no, it was like very painful to leave. We didn't want to leave. It was a choice. I know that we did leave, but we felt kind of pushed out.
Huh. Yeah. And what do you mean when you say like you didn't want it? Didn't want what? The shedding, or you didn't want the business? Like what?
No,
what
I didn't want the shedding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like
no way.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
what it's your skin.
What was happening that made it feel like you needed to shed? Like what was coming up?
And so many things were brought to the surface, and it was like a choice of, as a snake, right? You can like keep letting the dead skin kind of bury on or pile on, or you can like shed the skin, but it's not always fun. It's a little uncomfortable when you're shedding something, and it leaves like a soft, new, fresh skin, which is more vulnerable and more sensitive to like texture and heat and all that type of stuff. So for me, a lot of the shedding was of some old identities, even things like living in New York City, being the girl who ran around New York, being a founding trainer at Performix and Today Show and this, that, and the other. And like all of these very egocentric things that I had worked 18 years to build, 18 years I was in the fitness industry. And it was so much of my identity. And it was a choice to put it down and to leave that chapter and close that door. But then there was also so much pain. Like the day that I let my certifications expire, 18 years I had these certifications, and the day that I let them expire and decided to not re-up them was very painful. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of like, am I going to regret this? Obviously I can go get certified again, but it was just like holding on to these identities and stories. And 2021 for me exposed a lot in the coaching industry, and I did not jive with a lot of what I saw. And so I left a lot of friendships and relationships, and that was really hard. I walked away from some business transactions with people and collaborations, and it was just really painful because it was like I just felt like I was living in a bubble with rose-colored lenses and everything was fine. But I'm so grateful for what happened, because it's not that it was not fine. It was just like, oh, I can actually see a different side of things. And I'm grateful that I can see that, because I know I'm in a better place, but it was really hard. And then to do it all in quote unquote, the public eye, like I'm not Kylie Jenner, but like to do it in front of 30,000, 26,000 followers and an email list and be sharing my life on social media every single day and have all these clients, like you said, and like holding this and people looking at you in a certain way. It just felt like, man, and I've always shared the truth, like when I'm not okay and being vulnerable and I'm having a bad day, like I've always shared it, but it just felt very raw. And there were definitely times where it felt personal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. To be going through so much transition and shedding while you are holding yourself to a standard of leadership for people and feeling like you may be putting a pressure on yourself to have the answers when you're in a season of questioning is, I imagine, challenging. I don't think I've been through it quite to that extent yet, but I'm sure it happens for every entrepreneur once you're in the game long enough.
Totally. And that, that was the same season. Like we retired Mike from his corporate job and he came into the business and then we're transitioning to like working together, and which actually was really easy for us, but there was just a lot of transition happening. And for me, that was the hardest season of ego and you were a part of my world at the time because I was working with you as your mentor and you were witnessing it without knowing that you were witnessing it. Like you knew, because I would get on calls and tell you guys that something was going on and it was hard and dark and heavy, but it was the first time that I had ever really experienced like the ego of the business. Right. And I'm not talking about like validation and likes and stuff. It was more like abandonment and rejection and comparison. And I had never ever experienced any of that before. And so it was like, oh man, this is hard and ugly. And also I am holding this for all these people. And our business was, it was like you said, you're like, oh, you had this big business. I did. I had a team of 14 people. We were doing $1 million a year. Like it was a huge business and it was amazing. And it was really hard. It was a really hard season.
I actually have to say, I learned from being your mentee in that season because it was when I started to see leaders as people. And I actually think that it really helped me because I think there was probably some of this, when I first came to the online coaching space, it was this feeling of, Jess knows, right? She's got the thing, the sauce, the answers. I am like little student asking for answers. But I think in that, development of our mentor-mentee relationship and witnessing you in that, I was like, realized, oh, she's a human. She's a human. She's allowed to be successful, having these accolades and accomplishments, and all of that gets to be true. And she's on her journey. And I actually think it helped me because it made me realize, everyone, and I've had different times where I've learned this lesson being in rooms with different leaders. It just makes me realize they're just a person. They're just a person that keeps putting one foot in front of the other. And I think that is, to go back full circle at the beginning of this conversation, what gives me, quote, confidence to just show up like I know what I'm doing and kind of feel the fear and do it anyway, because I really get to my core that the only way to get better at something is by doing it. Like, I think there is this feeling where people actually like to stay stuck because they know what their current reality is. So a little bit they're lying to themselves. Sometimes some people, when they say things like, oh, I want a 6-figure, multi-6-figure, 7-figure business, and they're not posting content. I'm like, we're not playing the same game. You can go do 27 journal prompts and 11 meditations, but the only way that you're gonna do it is be a scientist, detective, artist, whatever you want to call it, tweak it and go again, and do it with a pit in your stomach, a fear in your stomach, until you've done it so many times that it's no big deal. I think I also learned that from being an actor. I was an actor in college. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think that helped a lot. I got a lot of reps out where, like, if you go on stage and you don't 110% own what you're doing, it doesn't land. And I learned that in middle school, right? Like being a dancer, theater person, that the way you get an audience to be on board with what you're doing as a performer is you own the choice. That's what they would say. You can get any script and you can make any choice, but you have to make a choice with what you're doing or they won't buy it. And so I think with every action that I take, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I just trailblaze on a choice. And then I know that I'm going to get the feedback I need. And it's never really stressed me out because I can, for example, put an offer out as an online coach entrepreneur example, and I'll learn in the process of holding clients in that offer, holding it, things will go awry. I'll come up against certain challenges, but the only way to progress on it is by getting that rep in and then tweaking it rather than sitting on my couch thinking about what I could do. You just got to move. And I love, I love this comparison of calling it like motion versus action. Like coming to a training, being on a coaching call, listening to a webinar is motion. You think you're doing something, it feels productive, but it has done nothing yet to move the needle forward until you go do the needle moving action thing that grows the business in the direction that you're taking it, posting the content, selling the offer, serving your clients, doing the live, like hosting the podcast. That is action. But motion is where a lot of people love to hang, is the idea of like consuming, I think.
Yeah. Well, it just feels safe. I mean, so much, it's so easy to fold laundry and listen to a podcast.
Yes.
It's just so much easier. So I really want to dive for a second into this idea of choice, because when it was acting, I want to talk about what that looked like.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that over here.
Yes.
I don't want to do that over here. I want to move because we take action. We're not just in motion. We're actually in action. So this is the deal. We're going to put this into play right now if you're still listening to this episode, which you absolutely should be, because it's been amazing. You're going to stop and you're going to take action. Because you could keep folding the laundry and you could keep driving the car and you could keep doing whatever it is that you're doing, cooking dinner with us. Hi, watch out for those onions, right? But here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop because we're going to end this thing. And you're going to go pop over to the other podcast. You're going to pop over to Alex's podcast and you're going to listen to part 2, where we're going to dive all into choice and fear and falling flat. And maybe we'll even chat some tactical content things and strategies. And well, I don't know. I'm not sure where the conversation is going to go, but I'm going to tell you this. You have to take action if you want to hear the rest.
Oh, I love it. Okay. See you on part 2 on Coach's Corner, which is my podcast.
All right, let's go. But before we pop off, where can everybody find you? What do you have going on? How can they connect with you?
Yes. So we've got my podcast, which you guys are definitely going to for part 2. So Coach's Corner on everywhere you can find podcasts. Instagram at Alex Najarian is just my name. And then what we've got coming up right around the corner, which is going to be the Bee's Knees, is Biz Boot Camp, which is a 1-week boot camp where I teach you content and sales strategy for how to sign on clients straight from Instagram. So we didn't really talk content and sales strategy stuff on here, but I am a content and messaging queen, if I do say so myself. So come in, I'll teach you all my best stuff in Biz Boot Camp. And I think, Jess, you have the link in the show notes for that.
Yeah. And I will absolutely be there. I'm stoked to go see it. I think it's really funny that we didn't talk content today, because that was our plan was to talk content. So we left you with another cliffhanger. You got 2 cliffhangers from us today. We're just on a roll. Make sure you go over, follow Alex, screenshot this episode, share it out on social media, tag Alex and I both, and let us know what some of your takeaways were. And the reason we love you to do that is obviously so we can see what you're loving and what you're not. But most importantly, because you're coming to us from a different podcast, I want to make sure that we can actually get a chance to connect with you in the DMs. And I know Alex and I both hang out in the DMs a lot. It really is us on social media. So come say hi, make sure you're tagging us, and we'll slide back into your DMs and start a conversation with you. We'd love to see you over there. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.